And the man who called that onside kick in his Super Bowl winning coaching performance in South Florida, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints and Super Bowl 44 champion head coach, Sean Payton. Good to see you, Sean.
Good seeing you, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when you came to the NFL Network post-game show set after that Super Bowl, you and Drew Brees came together.
I remember.
Okay. And my memory of this interview is my entire right side of my body went numb because you came and slapped everybody's hands when you walked on that set, and you hit me so hard. I think it went up into some sort of a tendon that attached to the rest of my arm.
It was
you were on fire.
It was a locker room reaction on set.
Yes, you did. I mean, you just were slapping everyone. And you go way back with Marshall. You were his position coach at San Diego State.
I was the running back coach his sophomore year at San Diego State.
So you were way back with him, and it was just, honestly, I kept thinking to myself, what's my next question? I can't think through the pain of not feeling my arm. Now that you're so far removed, I mean, what are your memories of that night, Coach?
One of the challenges, obviously, is the preparation leading up to the game and the finality of the game. It's the only game in the playoffs or regular season that these two teams really won't have a chance to assemble in the locker room afterwards. So the game's over, and then it's a little bit chaotic. There's not that final moment in the locker room thanking the players. There's the on-field presentation that spills over to the locker room, but at different times. The buses gradually leave, and you end up at the hotel party. But it's much different than any other end of game because of the process after the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it happens fast. You get back to the hotel, and you're wide awake. It's 10:30 p.m. You're hungry, and your night's just beginning, and all your friends and family have been drinking and eating since noon. And then one by one, they tell you, I'm going to the bathroom, and you never see them again because they don't want to deal with you're not leaving yet. You know that.
Yeah, you didn't want to.
They just disappear, and then pretty soon there's one person left.
Did you go to sleep that night at all?
Yeah, it was late. At 5:45 a.m., we went to sleep, and then, man, in about an hour and a half was up again.
You had your press conference, right?
The press conference was in Fort Lauderdale, so it's a 50-minute drive.
Wow.
The president calls, and
He called?
And yep, in the morning.
When? Like on your cell phone?
It would have been cell phone at probably about an hour after going to bed. So 5:45, 6:45, 7 o'clock. And then
presidential wake-up call.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
What was the caller ID? Unavailable? Or is it a 202?
I think it was.
Is it unavailable?
It said Obama. No, I'm kidding.
Yes! That's a good one.
No, it was. I can't recall.
What you got that call? That's awesome. Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. We had Drew Brees here yesterday. I asked him, and I'm wondering what you think. Any similarities between that Super Bowl appearance, NFC South winning team, with a quarterback with some serious pedigree to him, getting the first shot at the Super Bowl? Same thing with a coach going against a team with an all-time quarterback playing for him.
Yeah,
it seems, in a way, just a little bit similar.
Absolutely. I think, look, when you start with the quarterback position, and Matt's had a great year, and listen, he's a fantastic quarterback. That first separate room they want to walk into after being a starter and being a Pro Bowl player is that Vince Lombardi, I've won a Super Bowl at this position, and it puts you certainly in a different, or you're seen in a different light. I think the same thing takes place with coaching. Our fear in Super Bowl 44 is the Colts had just played the Bears in Miami 3 years prior, and they were back at the same hotel, practicing at the same facility, and Peyton Manning I just hated the idea that they were in such a routine, and we were just like glad to be, that team that was just arriving
Sure.
into the big city like we'd never been there before.
Sure.
And I think to some degree those similarities exist in this game. And I think Dan and Matt and that team, they'll be plenty prepared and ready. It's those first 8 minutes of the game that you're not going to remember at all. That you better just be calm in those early stage starts of the game.
So if I recall, what did you do? You did a couple things to keep people loose or make them realize the stage.
You're trying to break the routine up. There's a timing element that's different. And the biggest challenge is when you come onto the field for warm-ups, you're coming on at a time earlier than normal for the kickoff. And so, we had the strength coaches blow the whistle when it truly would be the time we're getting onto the field. So otherwise you're out there and it's like, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait, hurry up and wait. And you got the national anthem, you got a couple other songs, you got the coin toss, you got time to go say hello to Carrie Underwood, like we did. And that's the one thing you deal with. Halftime's 35 minutes. It's much different because our halftimes right now are 8-9 minutes and we're in and out. So you have time to take the T-shirt off, take the pads off, give them some dry clothes, eat some food, getting acclimated that way, and then also trying to make light of it. The Pro Bowl, it was the first year the Pro Bowl was played ahead of the Super Bowl. And so down in Miami were all our top Pro Bowl players. We had 9 that year.
Yeah.
And the only disappointing thing about that was, here's your team getting on the plane to go to the Super Bowl, and your captains aren't, Drew's not on the plane, Stinchcomb, Will Smith, Jari Evans, any and all of our Pro Bowl players are already down there. And there's something about that is, so we had them, we stole a page from Bill Walsh's book back in the 70s or 80s where the hotel we arrived at, the Intercontinental, starting with Drew, we had basically 9 of our Pro Bowl players all in Bellman's outfits. And so when the team pulled up, here were our leaders, our captains, grabbing their luggage.
Yes,
and
I remember this.
And so it kind of started off with just a little wrinkle, but something that I think, certainly helps them relax.
Sean Payton, a couple more minutes here on the Rich Eisen Show. We'll get to Zebra Technologies here in a second and point out to our radio audience there's been a set of shoulder pads sitting next to Sean Payton this entire time. We'll get to that. I do want to get to my favorite playoff story involving you. We've never told this on the air, and I've never told you this story either, okay?
Uh-oh. Seattle
is hosting New Orleans in a playoff game.
Correct.
Up in Seattle.
And we played them earlier.
Played them early.
In the season. So it's not uncommon. We played them on Monday Night Football 5 weeks prior, and now we are back in the divisional round at Seattle. Only it's a little different. We're staying over across the water in Bellevue instead of downtown. But whatever we were doing wasn't working, and we're in Bellevue. And if you get your itinerary, it's a West Coast game, so you're making the conversions. Are we in Western time? It's a different itinerary than when we played on Monday Night Football. Nonetheless, it's all good, but it's going to be a weather game. It's going to have a big factor in this game. And so the first thing in the morning when I get up is I have a waffle, the whipped cream, strawberries, and I'm flipping through the networks trying to get either ESPN or NFL Network. Who's going to give me the forecast? There's NFL Network. I got it. And they're going to these sites where the divisional games are going to be played. And they're talking about, this is sunny here, blah, blah, blah. And then to Seattle, and they get to the Seahawks Stadium, and I know that it's going to be, and you can see the wind. And I'm eating my waffle, and they pan down on Russell Wilson and Drew Brees throwing a football on the field in their grays. I'm going to tell you where I'm supposed to be at that moment when they're throwing a football. I am supposed to be meeting with the officials, discussing the inactives, all right, and getting ready to say the Lord's Prayer and give our players a pep talk. That's where I'm supposed to be at that moment. I stumble out of the bed. This is my worst nightmare. I know I'm a half an hour away from the stadium, and I'm thinking to myself, national anthem, I'm in my underwear late to the game, right? That's the nightmare that I have.
Wow.
And I just saw Breeze and Russell Wilson warming up. And I run to the shower, call my assistant, can't get him. The waffle is spilled on the floor. I get back, my assistant says, hey, what's up? And I said, when did the buses leave? No one called. He said, Coach, the buses haven't left yet. They had taken B-roll from the Monday night game.
Someone in the tape room ran the wrong tape.
Can you imagine? I text Falk. He's on set with Rich. I said, what are you guys doing? I had a cow. Like, I'm telling you, you have no idea. We're talking about being like, this is the divisional playoff game, not being there for the kickoff as the head coach. That's how late I was.
And Sean, just Marshall showing me the text. We went back and forth.
I arrived. This guy now is live on the field, and I peek out at the stadium only because of the conditions, and I take a look, and Rich says, good to have Sean Payton here at the stadium on time. Just some sly comment that not one person's going to understand until we tell this story.
Amazing.
Right?
Oh, my God. Sean Payton here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's the scoop with the Zebra Technologies and this particular set of shoulder pads you got to your left here?
It's really more of like an information deal because the league has been with Zebra 3 years now. When we hear these miles per hour, Tyreek Hill 23 miles per hour, next gen stats,
yes,
it's Zebra. And they're involved in any type of tracking. So all our barcodes at the grocery store, airplanes, you know, we're going to go on a ski lift. They track product, they track players now. And they're with 95% of the Fortune 500 companies. But the bottom line for us is they go in the shoulder pad and we track the players. And I can get their practice snaps. I can get the distance they've traveled. I can monitor for us as an injury prevention. I think for the league is a television production. You guys see it?
Yeah, sure.
In our next gen stats. So these little chips, we can kind of put them anywhere. And the only thing that we have to have is a field that's prepared for it. The Super Bowl field will be ready.
And so what do you do with these metrics as a coach?
These metrics I take and look at, and I'll look the very first time I saw a practice, the average receiver was going 6.5 miles of practice, total distance traveled.
Sure.
Brandon Cooks was at 8.2. Now that was substantially different. Mm-hmm. And so, hey, Johnny, let's make sure that we're watching Cooks here so we're not, you know, all of a sudden getting a pulled muscle.
Sure.
The offensive line, they're all at 1.6, 1.8, 1.7. Now, Streve's pretty smart. And he gets wind of this. The next day I'm at practice, I walk out there and the O-linemen are walking in circles to get past the 2-mile mark.
They're gaming the system.
They're just meandering.
Guys. They're smart guys.
But it helps us.
Great.
Look, it's silly to say, hey, let's back off of practice snaps today and then not really know what that means. We can look at this data and know exactly how many reps, how far, how many reps at full speed, how many reps. It gives us that's smart for our investment. And I think from a fan standpoint, you know, my son loves knowing who ran the fastest on that weekend, and they do a great job.
Zebra Technologies, good to see you here, Sean Payton.
Great seeing
Thanks
you.
for coming here. I'm just apologizing. The bus to the hotel left a half an hour ago back here, so you're gonna have to walk, okay?
I can't even tell that story as serious as it was.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.